the Muslim moral decay, that they know what happened on October 7 was a genocide. But according to their religion, genocide and ethnic cleansing against the Jewish people is actually a virtue because the Quran prays it. Muhammad did it. When people come and try to force a Palestinian state, who is going to rule that state? Who's going to be in charge of it? And are they accountable, leadership, to their people? Are they responsible? Or tomorrow they are going to use their own children as human shields again? If they cannot be trusted with their own children, how can I trust them with statehood? Up to this point, they just proved to be irresponsible gamblers who gambled with children's blood. God, the God of Israel, is with the Jewish people. The Jewish people is a blueprint. Nobody can remove it from the domain of consciousness. Any attempt to actually to remove it means the collapse of every society, of the entire structure.
Where were you on October 7th? When did you first hear about what happened? And were you surprised by what happened?
I was actually on a remote island in the middle of the ocean. Far, far away, and I heard from the news. At the beginning, I thought it was just another Hamas terrorist attack. It was expected, but I did not realize the magnitude of the attack that was beyond anyone's imagination. It took actually a few days for me to realize what was going on, and I managed to get out of my island and come to the closest city, and I took it from there. And every hour, every day, the shocking footage and news and devastation of Hamas attack, just it kept growing like this. And it wasn't until I watched the entire massacre film when I realized the genocide that took place. Everybody was saying terrorist attack, a massacre, but I saw ethnic cleansing attempt, at least, of 20 Jewish communities. And this is where my life would never be the same.
Since October 7th, it seems, Mosab, that much of the world has conveniently forgotten what happened and has turned the tables and is now only assessing and criticizing and critiquing Israel for what's going on the ground. How do you assess Israel's response, and how do you assess the world's response to Israel's response?
Yes, we are dealing with a very clear case of narrative inversion.
Narrative inversion.
What happened on October 7 was, by all standards, ethnic cleansing. Because Hamas killed people on that day based on their ethnicity, religion, nationality, faith, indiscriminately. In fact, they did not only kill, but they destroyed buildings, they burnt trees, they raped women, they beheaded children, they kidnapped infants, elders. We never witnessed this in our modern history. We saw some Hollywood movies of similar atrocities, and we thought it was exaggerated. But this was streamed live in our modern day. There is nothing that can be compared to that. For example, what happened later, which Hamas invited and opened the gates of hell by taking their own children as human shields. And Israel had no choice but to retaliate, because a world that was not expecting from Israel to do anything about this is a mad world. Because what would be next if you don't do something about it? And the fact that Hamas people hid behind their own children did not make them immune. It's their fault. It's their second or third capital crime. So unfortunately, the world did not want to see Hamas crime of using their own children as human shields. And in war, people die. And what happened was a very clear case, has been a very clear case of a collateral damage, especially when Israel warned civilians, gave them the military plans in advance to evacuate an entire area. So it's a very clear case that this is a war zone, and those are victims of war, collateral damage. In comparison to what happened on October 7, morally inequivalent. We cannot compare both cases. And most people, unfortunately, measure it by the head count. How many people died here and how many people died there. And we say, no, it's why the people here died and why the people there died. And this is what can make a big difference.
But Mosab, if students from Columbia University or Harvard University were here, they would say, no, no, no. Hamas is a legitimate resistance movement. And in the name of that legitimate resistance, everything is justified. You know Hamas probably better than just about any person on the planet. What would you say to those students from Harvard and Columbia and elsewhere? Is it a resistance movement?
This is a very similar case of a rapist who's trying to convince the judge that it was an act of love. What is resistance? Even if they claim it's a resistance. Resistance, killing people indiscriminately, kidnapping infants, beheading babies, killing pregnant women, raping, looting, mass destruction, wiping out entire community. What type of resistance are we talking about? And those who play with the terminology, trying to change the narrative and make that the act of October 7 was justified. Those are criminals. They are complicit.
No, please.
I agree. Sorry to cut you off, but I think you're touching on a very important point. So taking a step back from Gaza, Israel, a lot of the work that we do at ISGAP is looking at the impact of the Muslim Brotherhood on the narrative, on academic discourse.
Right.
And we've uncovered that Qatar, which has a bay'ah, a spiritual oath to the Muslim Brotherhood, is funding American universities all over the world, and we've uncovered tens of billions of dollars from Qatar, which is connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is changing the discourse, which is demonizing Israel and the Jewish people, and also, in a way, glorifying Hamas and any Muslim Brotherhood-related entity. How do you see the role of Qatar in this situation? They're funding Hamas in the kinetic warfare, and they're funding the narratives at universities, at the best universities in the United States and the Western world. What do you think of this?
Well, this is very important. It's not only Qatar. We have hundreds of millions of Muslims around the world who sympathize with the Palestinian cause. And we have also millions of Westerners who sympathize with the victim. Because, in my opinion,
with the victim,
with the victim mentality.
Oh,
I think
in general.
In general. So they wherever there is a victim, underdog, they feel now sympathy towards that because they are victims themselves. So it's not. I think the issue is not only campuses, but I agree with you that there is Muslim Brotherhood work for a long period of time in the West, and they have so many fronts. Every time it's like a snake with 99 heads. Every time you cut a couple of heads, it grows 10 more. The Muslim Brotherhood has many fronts. The United States Congress failed to outlaw them 3 times, which I find very strange. Of course, I appreciate the American freedoms and how we protect the freedoms of people, even though it's some of them play in a very gray area and exploit the freedoms of this country. And this is something I appreciate about America. But when we are dealing with the Muslim Brotherhood and the country, the birthplace of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is Egypt, outlawed the Muslim Brotherhood in its country of origins. So I don't understand why the United States is not outlawing the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar host the late Yousef al-Qaradawi, Sheikh Yousef al-Qaradawi. They gave him the platform. He spread so much hatred. Al Jazeera has been spreading so much hatred globally and in the Middle East. So this is, I think, their way of finding a way to become a big player, even though it's coming at the expense of Israel's security and the spread of false narrative, the victimhood of people who simply have self-inflicted pain. So yes, there's lots of money, but also the Muslims outnumber the Jewish minority. And this is why from the beginning of the war, I said that the Muslims need to back off, because this is not a joke. Propagating in huge numbers, spreading false narrative worldwide, using the social media, which doesn't know political boundaries. They invaded campuses, they invaded everywhere, and they made it sound or look that the majority stand with Palestine against Israel. But this is, again, the Muslim moral decay, that they know what happened on October 7 was a genocide. But according to their religion, genocide and ethnic cleansing against the Jewish people is actually a virtue, because the Quran prays it. Muhammad did it. Supposedly, I don't know if Muhammad ever existed, but according to their historians, Ibn Hisham and Ibn Ishaq, in both, these are the two main narratives of the life of Muhammad, there is Jewish ethnic cleansing in the Arab Peninsula. So if Muhammad did that to the Jewish people, the Muslims are waiting for the end time, where the stone and the tree and other objects are going to tell the Muslims there is a Jew hiding behind me, right. Come and kill him. Yeah, this is a very deep level of human delusion. And when we take basically finances, oil money, gas money, political power, a majority of people, and the misinformed Westerners, then add to that collateral damage of what's supposed to be a superpower of the region against refugee camps. This is the recipe for a disaster. In a situation where we have a genocide committed against a religious minority that suffered a Holocaust in the past, that there has been continuous attempts to annihilate this ancient, one-of-a-kind religious minority, that we don't have actually like this at all. Many ethnic groups perished, and the Jewish people, through resilience, defied time, so many atrocities, and they survived in a small minority that is contributing so much to life. And I see the struggle, and I see the enemy out for blood. So, well, I have to drop my interest right now, because this is now priority. Because if we don't finish Hamas and Iran and Hezbollah simultaneously, it is going to be the birth of a savage empire that actually will backfire, and the United States eventually will pay the price. Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah thrive in chaos. Yeah. And if there was a peace process between the superpowers of the region, and that was Saudi Arabia and Israel, of course to their side Egypt as the biggest Arab country, plus the Arab Emirates, that's it. The Iranian rule is over.
So in Gaza, in the Palestinian society, are there people who are sick and tired of Hamas? Are there people wanting a change, but they can't express themselves? Do you have friends, allies that reach out to you that quietly maybe because of the situation? Do you have a sense that there's opposition to this leadership?
Look, Hamas has opposition in Gaza, and because they oppressed their rival parties. But this is a small minority. The vast majority of Gazans up to October 7 and on the day of October 7 were supportive of Hamas. If I tell you otherwise, I lie to you. Even though they don't like Hamas' iron grip, the question is not how many Gazans support Hamas, because this is very hard to find the statistics, but I guarantee you that the vast majority of Gazans agree on the destruction of Israel. And this is where I am certain. And I think whether if they want Hamas to do the job, or Islamic Jihad to do the job, or the Public Front, or the Palestinian Authority, this revenge mentality, the tribal bloodlust that coming from the 7th century Arabia. Tribes would go in those cycles of revenge and retaliation for eternity until they annihilate their opponent or get annihilated. And this is the mentality of the people we are dealing with. So it's not how many Hamas. Also, does the Palestinian Authority want Israel to exist? And who is launching this global assault against Israel? Prior to October 7 and after October 7. 10 years, the Palestinian Authority has been funding the BDS to delegitimize Israel, to incite against the Jewish people, to portray Israel as an apartheid state. It was never about Palestine. For them, they just the entire anything Palestine affiliated is a hostile in a way or another to the existence of the state of Israel. And this is how they make fortune out of it. This is how they gain power. This is their game. You know, the two-state solution is a similar case to the two-husband solution. It cannot work. And the people are trying to force not only one elephant through the eye of a needle, they're trying to force two elephants. The country is very small, the territory is very small, and the international community's attempt to establish a Palestinian political entity since Oslo went in the worst possible way. What we are dealing with today is actually the consequences of Oslo. That Israel trusted that what so-called Palestinians, which is, in my opinion, nothing but a dangerous ideology that has been aiming to destroy Israel, not to build a Palestinian state. So the world leadership, United Nations, even the United States and Israel bought the lie that there is a possibility for a Palestinian state as a neighboring state of Israel. But unfortunately...
But if not, what's the alternative, Mosab? Eternal conflict?
No, actually, I think a second Palestinian state could be an eternal conflict. But in my opinion, the people of the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, you know, we are not Palestinians. The children who are born there are not Palestinians. When I was born with a Jordanian birth certificate. Our ethnicity, Arabians, even though we may not even qualify to that, because we are mixed. But let's say respectfully that we are Arabs. And Palestinian is a political ideology that was of a strange combination made by the Muslim Brotherhood, the KGB, the Romans, the British mandate, and somehow Yasser Arafat adapted this ideology, and the ideology is like a snowball, just kept developing into this very strange entity that has in it the Islamist the communist, the all type of strange ideologies, not even one thing. And all of it is aiming at the destruction of Israel, or at least, those who say the Palestinian Authority does not want to destroy Israel. Then I say, what does it mean actually to go on a global assault, delegitimizing Israel systematically for many, many years? Right. What does that mean? What it means to, in principle, delegitimize Israel, this is the first step. And so the Palestinian Authority, under the umbrella of Palestine, is doing this type of terrorism. And Hamas, under the umbrella of Palestine, is doing committing genocide against the Jewish people. And they're playing that this is the good cup and this is the bad cup. And let's go into their rabbit hole. And what I say, no, let's get to the surface. Tell me, what makes you a Palestinian? Define Palestine. And this has been my work for the past few months, that I want to take it to square one. We must define Palestine. If Palestine is not a nation or ethnic group, if it's only an ideology, then we need to understand your constitution. What do you stand for? What do you want? Is your objective to build a Palestinian state, or your objective to destroy the state of Israel? Because as long as the various Palestinian groups conflicted among each other, that one party want this and one party want the opposite extreme, then how can we figure them out? How can we negotiate with them? Because they don't have a legitimate leadership that agree on national agenda. Plus, they don't have a nation. It's not a nation. It's political gangs and tribes that extremely conflicted. So with that said, when people come and try to force a Palestinian state, who is going to rule that state? Who's going to be in charge of it? And are they accountable leadership to their people? Are they responsible? Or tomorrow they are going to use their own children as human shields again? If they cannot be trusted with their own children, how can I trust them with statehood? Up to this point, they just proved to be irresponsible gamblers who gambled with children's blood. So in this type of chaos, I come to a stable, developed democracy and threaten them with a boycott, sanctions, if they don't accept this impossible reality. So they are pushing Israel to the corner again, because this is not a matter of Palestinian sovereign state as much as it's a matter of existential threat to the state of Israel. That's the two-state solution. My life is in danger. The same enemy that wants to annihilate the state of Israel, this enemy wants me to cease to exist for just being. For no crime I committed against them, except I saved their lives and many innocent lives. So why do they want me to cease to exist? It's a very important question. And if they keep pushing that, we have no choice but to fight. So when we are at war, in my opinion, we must fight. We must fight the good fight. And I understand many of the liberal Jews, they don't want to open a global front with the Muslim world, with the Americans, but hey, if this is the reality, if this is what we are facing, then we bring the truth forward. That's your existence, that's my existence, that's the future of the entire region. So being truthful is a lot better than being a hypocrite or being afraid. Being fearless. I understand that we are outnumbered, because again, when we have hundreds of millions of people posting material, propaganda, it becomes the reality of so many uninformed people. So, my opinion, we need to shift our strategy from defense to offense until at least the end of this war. Then after that, we can explain the chain of events that brought us there. And I think the artists, the filmmakers, everybody can do their role. But now we are at war. And when we are at war, I think we must fight the good fight.
Would anything have been different if there had been, for example, a left of center Prime Minister of Israel on October 7th? Would anything have been different if Israel had made more concessions earlier than it has? What's your message to us and to them?
Well, the leftists in Israel were killed and kidnapped on October 7. Those were the residents of the kibbutzim.
They didn't get a pass.
Yes, the Hamas did not have mercy on them. And I think the desperate attempt to blame somebody in the middle of an ugly war. This is an ugly war, and no democracy ever dealt with a situation like this. And to start blaming that this is right and this is left and this is because a corrupt leader and non-corrupt leader, and they want to change a government in the middle of an emergency situation. I mean, it is possible. Israel has the power to do that. But why to give Hamas the victory? And in fact, all this game blaming Bibi, I'm not a big fan of the man. But for now, I prefer he stays in office and carry on, do the job. He's doing a good job. And I don't want to change governments in the middle of the war, because this is what Hamas is counting on. Hamas is counting on the collapse of the Israeli government. And some liberal Jews in the United States are taking advantage of the situation. And some also left-wing activists in Israel and politicians taking advantage of the hostage situation to try to bring the government down. This is not now the time for a political game. When people, they need to understand the victims of this war. They need to understand that we still have hostages. They need to understand that we must rid of Hamas for the sake of Arab and Jewish children in the region. It's not the time now to change governments.
Unfortunately, we have just 1 or 2 minutes left, but though it's a big question, maybe you have a short answer for it.
Yeah.
Again, there are those in the Jewish world and elsewhere who say, but there was never a Holocaust, European-style Holocaust in the Arab world. Jews lived peacefully, and we are not, at the end of the day, anti-Israel, not anti-Semitic. We're only anti-Zionist or anti-Israel. And the Quran not only has what you mentioned about the Jews, but it has other elements that show respect for the Jews. So they try and weave a different narrative of the present and the future. What's your response to them?
Look,
are they right, or are they misreading the situation at risk of their lives?
Look, the Quran is not fair towards the Jews. That's a lie. There are some Muslim sultans that came hundreds of years after Muhammad's death, and they treated the Jews in Spain fairly. And this is where, many of the Islamic scholars say, that this imam or this sheikh of that era treated the Jews fairly. Umar ibn al-Khattab gave some Jewish beggar a salary from the Islamic treasury, etc. And they tried to build a theory on it. But the Quran is very loud, and the Quran is the most legitimate Islamic source of legislation. And it's filled with hatred towards the Jewish people as disobedient people. So, okay, I understand that people can try to build whatever they want narrative, try to counter the mainstream Islamic narrative that hates the Jews. Well, could work, but isn't this what we've been doing for 14 centuries? Trying to avoid a full-scale confrontation with the Muslim majority. And what's the outcome? A genocide. And by the way, they did it, they were complicit with Hitler just roughly 100 years ago, the Mufti of Jerusalem.
Right.
It's in their blood. And what do I want to do with a minority of silent, peaceful Muslims who don't have the moral responsibility to step forward and say what happened on October 7 is not acceptable? But because it goes according their Quran, they justify it. So with that said, let's be truthful. Let's not go into this rabbit hole of Islam. Let's call things for what they are, and let's fight the good fight. And God's willing. The truth is to our side. God, the God of Israel, is with the Jewish people. The Jewish people is a blueprint. Nobody can remove it from the domain of consciousness. Any attempt to remove it means the collapse of every society, of the entire structure. So with that said, this is the time where we need to have our faith in the universal design. What made the Jewish people survive 5,000 years of atrocity, they defied time, space, everything, and they survived. It's a miracle. Israel is the miracle of the world, and Israel is not a political entity, and Israel is not right and left. But that's it. Let's have a little bit of faith. There is God, there is truth. We are minority in this, but God's willing that truth will prevail.